Now, this next lesson is going to actually be very short because I covered most of this in the previous lesson. And one thing I want to note is that these are the commands that the to-do list application handles. And as a result, what I did was I put a little Scala doc up here above the handleUserInput function. So this shows those commands that we're going to be handling. And if I did that a little bit better, this would say this would be the item information, for example, and then D would have the number to delete, something like that. That's a little bit better. So that's the first thing I cover here. Then here is a note, you could handle this with an if-then-else structure, but in Scala, a preferred way to do something like this, especially when you start getting into pattern matching, all this pattern matching that we're going to start doing down here. That's exactly what the match expression is meant for, is pattern matching. So that's what we're doing down here. One thing I want to note about this one right here is that if you use third-party libraries, there's a better syntax for this, but because I'm just trying to use vanilla Scala at this point, that's why I wrote this expression like that. And again, we'll come back to this and I'll explain this one more as we go along. I just wanted to note that there's third-party libraries that make this a bit cleaner to read. And then when I look up here, I'm going to get rid of that trim because it's kind of getting in the way of what I want to talk about. So up here, you would look at input match. And the way you read this, when you see this, you can think immediately when you see these two words that what you're going to get down here is a match expression. So you're going to do something to match on this input variable. And you look back here and you say, oh, okay, input is a string. So we're about to match on that down here. And indeed, we do all that matching with all these cases right here. I covered all of this in the previous lesson, and I covered this in this lesson. With the V and the L, I note here that if you wanted to handle multiple strings, so if you wanted to add S for show, just keep adding more of these separating operators. And then this can be read as if the user types in V or L or S, then do this following action right here. On the next page, I started covering these patterns already, so I won't get into that more now. We'll talk about those more when we get there. One thing I want to note is this symbol right here. And at some point, people started calling this a rocket symbol. That never really caught on, but it's really a transformation symbol in Scala. So anytime you see this guy, what you can think is that it is going to transform whatever is on the left, it is going to transform that into whatever is over here on the right. So instead of calling it a rocket operator, I call it the transformation operator. And to help demonstrate the use of that transformation symbol and also to show the consistency of Scala, let me show you something here. So we can do our usual list of 1, 2, 3. And I think this will make sense as soon as you see it. Is that what we do with that transformation operator is we can say now val y of s is going to equal x of s. And I apologize for that train in the background. And now what we do inside a map is we say for every x in x of s, I want to transform that x into something else. So you can transform this into anything else that you want to transform it into. In this case, I'll just say, well, I want to transform it into x times 10 or something like that. And then you see the result there. So y of s is now this new list where every variable inside the initial list has been transformed by this algorithm right there. So again, this operator here means that we're transforming this thing into this thing over here. And again, the reason I just did that was to show the consistency of this transformation operator. And so then in summary, what this match expression does is it's going to do a pattern matching on this input variable right there. And then for each case over here, it's going to transform that pattern into a result. So each one of these patterns is going to be transformed into a different result as we go through the following lessons. And finally, down here at the bottom, I note that we should remember expression-oriented programming. And a key here that I'm talking about is as we go through all these transformations here, and as we fill in these question marks with actual code, these are going to be the return values from each case, right? So this is going to be the return value for Q, that'll be the return value for H right there, and so on. The important part is each of those are going to have to return this type of type right here in order for our function to compile. And that's a great hint for us that what we're going to do in cases like this, if you can imagine that when you want to view the list of topics that are in a to-do list, what you're going to do is you're going to access the database. You're going to use that select all function to get all the topics. Then you're going to print all those topics. And because those functions access the database, we're going to be working with try types in here. And because those are side effects, we're going to be returning unit here very naturally. And so that will match up there. And again, you'll see what I mean when we get there, but I just wanted to point that out right now while we're working with this skeleton code, is that each one of these expressions down here is going to have to match this type here in order for this function to compile.